Welcome to the second of the Parish Online sessions, and this one concentrates on the top row of menus in the system, and then we play with the geometries of the layers. So there's quite a lot of interactive involved in this bit. We do record the sessions, and that's so that I can send out to you afterwards the videos and the presentation itself. So you will get everything that we look at today, which is probably just as well, because I tend to go roaring through the slides on the grounds that if you get stuck on any of them, you can come back and look at them in your own time later. The idea now is to sort of cover all the ground, and then we can get to the questions and answers later. And then this particular topic is very well served by Parish Online's knowledge base. So this presentation has got all sorts of hyperlinks in it out to the representative articles, because they're particularly good on this topic. So feel free, since there are only two of you at the moment, please feel free to leap in, interrupt me, stop the flow of thought, and completely disrupt my afternoon. I don't care. Right. So what we're going to cover then is everything along the top row of Parish Online, why there are rules of geometry for the parish layers, and then we'll play for you to get that sort of used to the idea of using them. If you've done all this before, then let me know and we can think of something else to do. But most people tend to find this is quite good stuff. So the interactive part will involve you basically jumping from one window to another on your screen, and depending upon which sort of way you're looking at Zoom, whether it's in the Zoom app or the Zoom browser, you're either going to be jumping from two browser windows or from one window to another, and they use different techniques, which we'll discuss when we get there. But hopefully you've both got access to a Parish Online account with at least editor rights. So when we start in Parish Online, it always opens up for you on your home parish. So in my case, that's Long Sutton in Somerset. And along the top up here is a line of menu choices. And this is what we're going to talk about for the first half of the session today. And the first one is this one in the top left corner, which I call a hamburger, only because it's sort of, I think that's the American term for it for obvious reasons. And I don't really know what the Brits call it. But anyway, this three-line menu patch up here is the hamburger icon, and I'm just going to click on it now for you. And you'll see that what happens is the left-hand column disappears. So the hamburger icon is useful if you need to get more real estate on your screen. But on the other hand, the left-hand column is a pretty vital part of what you're doing in Parish Online. So I think this gets fairly rarely used, but it is there if the occasion ever arises. So I toggle it back on again to turn the column back on the left, which you see is now here. And we've gone to the first menu item, which is view, and has a drop-down list of 3. And we're going to start with bookmarks. I absolutely love bookmarks. Okay, so they come up here in a line of all the ones that I've created before. If you're starting from scratch, you'll obviously have none. And when you want to create a bookmark, it's obviously where you start here. You just type in whatever name suits you here. In my case, I tend to use planning application numbers because most of the things I bookmark are planning applications. Now, what the beauty of a bookmark is, it stores the system as it is at the moment. So if you have a particular layer engaged and you have a particular scale and you're at a particular point, all of that gets remembered by the bookmark, and you just jump straight to it. And we're just going to show you an example of that. So down in the bottom left-hand corner here, there's a little village called Thorney, and we're on a scale of 1,000 meters. If I click on the first bookmark, you can see it's jumped straight away. It's turned on the layer for planning applications. It's changed the scale. We're now down to the 50-meter scale, or up to it, depending which way your mind works. And it's brought up everything that I saved at the time when I made the bookmark. So it's really a system for saving you a lot of time by jumping to the right place, the right layer, the right scale, and the right scrolling left and right. makes life very simple. If you wanted to add a bookmark, as I mentioned it here, you just type in the name and you've got this bit here the way you want it, because it will jump back to the screen exactly the way you have it now. And the one issue I have with bookmarks is that they don't come in any particular order. They just seem to be very haphazard. Maybe it's the way I created them, but I don't seem to remember creating them this way around. So if you have a lot of them, which I do, then you need to be able to sort them or at least find them. And the way to do that is using your computer's Control F facility, or if you're using Macs. Either of you on a Mac by any chance? No, silence. Okay, so we're talking Windows, I guess. So Control F, which I'm just going to type on now, and that turns on this little bar up here, which you can type in anything you like. And I've just typed in 21/034, and immediately it's found the two planning applications that meet those parameters. So then you can just jump to either one, whichever you like. The other thing about bookmarks, which is a slight drawback, is that they're unique to the person who's logged on at the time. So if you like to have bookmarks that are going to be shared by other people, which in the case of planning applications, they are, you need to create them when you're in an account that everyone else can be using. So for instance, all of our parish councillors have access to an account called Parish Council. They all have the same password, and they can all come in together. The system is a cloud system. It doesn't care less that you have multiple users logged in as the same person, but it does mean that they can all see the same passwords, which can be very helpful. It entirely depends upon which way your council works or how you're working. So the next item was the second item in the view menu. I'm going to click on that again, and we're going into Coordinate Finder. Now, this is really useful for when someone comes to you and says, I have these coordinates of a place. Can you tell me where that place is? So the coordinates are going to be either in a latitude, longitude configuration, or they're going to be in eastings, northings. The difference between this and other systems is that latitude and longitude need to be decimalized. So if you've got them as hours, minutes, and seconds, you need to convert it. And to help you convert it, I've given you a link here, which will take you to an explanation of how you do the conversion, and it'll do it for you. So the top of the screen has got the coordinate type. You've got three to choose from. You've got British National Grid, which is what Parish Online is built on. You've got standard latitude and longitude, and then you've got this weird thing called WGS, which I guess means for World Geographical Survey, something like that, 84, which is another way of doing lat long. And then you put the details you've got in here. Notice that because of Greenwich being our sort of prime meridian, anywhere east of Greenwich is represented with a plus sign. Anywhere west of Greenwich, both of you two and myself, have to put in the easting with a minus sign to show that you're west of Greenwich. And sometimes if you put in details here and the screen will go white and there'll be a white dot in the middle of the screen, and it turns out that you're somewhere in the middle of the South Sea, or maybe you're off somewhere between Ireland and the Isles of Scilly, and it's because you've got the wrong coordinate type up here, or possibly you've forgotten the minus sign. I'll show you examples of each when we go into the next page. So what I've done here is put in standard eastings and northings as represented for the British National Grid, and it pops up and shows you that this happens to be our local church. So notice that because we're using the British National Grid, there's no minus sign on the easting. It just happens to be its coordinate under the National Grid system. If, however, we did it in latitude and longitude, which is here, you'll notice that we do have a minus sign for the longitude because we are west of Greenwich. And you'll see it's the same church, same coordinates in terms of eastings and northings, but different in terms of lat long. And what else are we going to do? Yep, it works the other way around as well. So if you go to any place in the map and you right click on it, it'll bring up this little mini menu here. Choose copy, it brings up another mini menu. And then you can say, I want the eastings, northings coordinate, that's the top one, or the lat long coordinate, that's the middle one. And the extent one just gives you the coordinates of the four corners of the screen. Not so interesting unless you want to take someone to this on a different place, but really useful for saying to somebody, this is the latitude and longitude of our church, and then they can use that for whatever they want it. When you enter here, you click on coordinate or coordinate lat long, it saves it to your clipboard for you. So you then need to paste it into the email that you're sending or wherever. I tend to save it into here just so I can see that it has actually done the right job. But that's a personal thing. There's no need for you to do that. So one more of the items in the view menu, which is legend. Now, legend is a way of telling what the various colors in the map are for, what they're representing. And that only works, of course, if you are using a layer which has got colored items in it. It doesn't do it for the basic Ordnance Survey map itself. So what we're going to do is just go back to the main screen, turn on a layer that needs colors. And I'm going to use address as an example. So I click on the address collection. It gives me two choices, plus points or postcodes, and I'm going to go for plus points. So I click on that, and you'll see that we now get color-coded dots representing every building in the parish. And to find out what the dots mean, you need to click on View Legend. Yep. And you'll see that the left-hand column now changes to the color scheme used for the dots. So blue for commercial, red for residential, and so on. So that's the use of the View Legend command. And then we just sort of update where we've done. We've done the hamburger, toggling the left column on and off, and we've done the bookmarks, the coordinates, and the legend. So now we're heading to the next one across, which is print. And print is really, really useful. It's why I would say, yes, it's one of the most used menu choices in the system. But when you're printing out, what you'll do is you need to scroll and move to the right part of the map, the bit you actually want to scroll to. So here, I'm just going to go to the center of the village and click on print, and up comes the area that it's going to print out. So if this is not quite what you were looking for, you can scroll around in here, you can zoom in or out until you get what you are going to want to have printed inside this square, because that's what's going to print. So up here, we're now going to type in a title and a description, and I'll show you the choices of templates. So I've put in Long Sutton Village Centre, as that's what this is. Just a description so that you can see how that's going to appear on the printout. We've chosen A4 landscape, but you have the choices of A3 and A4 landscape or portrait. And if you want planning application, that's for when your council is submitting a planning application to the planning authority. Not frequently used as far as I know. So what I've done is put in all those things and now show you. Here we go. I've selected to put in the north arrow just to give you a reference point, and so you can see what it looks like. I've ignored the legend. I've left the author in place so you can see where it goes. And we'll talk about toggle mask in a couple of slides' time. So I'm now going to click on print. And maybe I didn't click on print, sorry. No, whoa, I do beg your pardon. I didn't mean to do that. Wow, sorry. Let's come back to where we should be. Right, sorry. So here is where we should be. You have a choice of saying the printout should be a PDF file, which is standard, everyone knows a PDF file, or you can go for a graphic file, PNG, which is particularly useful if, for instance, you're doing something for a neighborhood plan, which needs lots of graphics and adjustments and so forth. But you have a choice of either, it doesn't make any difference which. When you're ready, we click on the print button. And what's happening here is that you expect to see something immediately, but you may not, because this is working on the cloud and it's just printing up what you selected. And depending upon how much detail you got in here, it may take a few seconds, but you'll get a little sort of circular arrow thing going around here telling you. And then when it's finished, it's ready, it comes up with your print title. Now, we gave the title alongside the village center, so it gives that to the title of the print. If you didn't put anything up here, then it'll come up with some system name, a few letters and characters, just to sort of tell you what time it is or something. And when it's ready, you can see what you get by clicking here on this little icon. And what you see now is the printout got a nice big boundary around the outside of the print. You've got the Parish Online logo, you've got your title here, you've got the description here, you've got the author here. You remember I log in as the Parish Council, and today's date and the scale in use. And then down the bottom, just for those of you who are I often get asked this, it prints a copyright notice for you, which satisfies the Ordnance Survey requirements. So then you have a choice of either downloading it to your computer and using it as an electronic file, or you can just send it straight to the printer if you're still operating in the 19th century and you want it on paper. So that's the print in general. Here's some print things in particular. So some people will say to you, could you please send us it in 1 to 250,000 scale or something? And those are all done for you here. You just click on the drop down arrow, select the one you want. You do have the option of hiding the author, which just gives you a blank space in the author's name on the printout. And the toggle map is interesting. What toggle mask is it basically changes the brightness between items which are inside your parish boundary and items which are outside. So inside is bright, outside is dull. And the idea being that clearly shows you your parish boundary for you. But it only operates, of course, if what you're printing is going to cut across your boundary. So if everything is inside your boundary, having the toggle mask on or off makes no difference at all. But it is useful when you need to clarify where responsibilities start or finish or whatever it happens to be. So printing, very practical, very useful because it's electronic. You can send stuff out to anybody and they'll see what you're seeing. So the next item we're going to take a look at is the table view. And that's just a straightforward item. You click it and it comes up with a screen like this. And what you're basically saying is, I would like to see all the records we have in a specific layer. So the first thing they do is they give you all the layers. So you click on the little down arrow and it comes up with every layer in the place. And if you see there's a scroll down bar here, there's literally hundreds of layers to choose from. So the fastest way to get to the layer that you want is to just type in the first few letters up here. And the system does a link to here and brings you up just the layers that match your typing. So for today's example, we're just going to choose allotment plots. And up it comes with the records that we have in our allotment plots part of the parish layers. And this you see is very much looking like a spreadsheet. And in fact, you can export it straight to a spreadsheet to do whatever you like with. Really helpful stuff. But you can refine this by drilling down through either the column or what other choices you want to do. In this case, I'm going to leave it on column and drill down and say, I want to drill on the ID column, and it's going to contain, and you can change this to sort of equals and starts with or whatever choices there are here. And then you type in the value that you want to find here. So for the sake of argument, we're just going to type in GSS because I know I've got some plots with that number in the ID. And so you get, show me the allotment plots with an ID that contains GSS. And you'll see that both of these IDs have got GSS. So the system worked. You can have more than one value here. Just click on this box and you can put in lots of values. So I'm going to suggest find those records which have either the word long for Long Sutton or plots for allotment plots in it. So you'll see us typing that in there, long and plots on a separate line for each. Click on save. And then lo and behold, you'll find I've now got 3 records here. They've all either got long or plots in the title. In fact, these have all 3 that have got lots, but that one's got a plot as well. So you can, one of the most appealing parts of the table view is you can edit these records here. So if you've got a whole bunch of records that you're going to change, let's say the current holder of the allotments has changed on 10 different plots because it's the end of the month or whatever, you can just bring up that table here, go through here, just change T. Cox to F. Smith or whatever it happens to be. And each time you've made a change, click on another record and it just saves that one. Now I've put a note here that says that feature editor rules apply. So if one of these is an allowed value, you can't delete it and leave nothing there because that's against the rules. So I don't mean allowed value, I mean required value. So there are some fields that are just not designed to be left empty, and so the editor will overrule you and not let you empty a field that must have something in it. So just click on another line to save what you've done. And then if you highlight just one of the rows, say this one, and then click on the view on the map button, it's really handy. It takes you directly to that particular object. So we've clicked on this particular allotment and it's gone straight to it. It's a quick way of finding where you are on the map. So if I just go back to where we were, you can also export this into a spreadsheet. It asks you to confirm whether or not you want to include metadata. Now, metadata is the sort of stuff that databases like to know about, like when was this record last edited, that sort of thing. When was it first created? So if you want that information, it will export it. But if you don't want it, then just leave it blank and click on export, and out it goes to a CSV file. Once you've clicked on download, the filters and everything you've chosen will stay in effect, and it'll only export those records which you've got filtered, unless you have no filter on, in which case it exports everything in that particular layer. And then once you've got the file saved on your computer, you can open it with Notepad or with a spreadsheet or basically do whatever you like with it. So we've covered print and table now. Let's move on to tools. Under tools, you've got 4 choices. The first one we're going to try is measure. And measure says, do you want to measure length or do you want to measure area? And we're going to say we're going to measure length, please. And then you do get the choice of changing the metrics here. You get you sort of, do you want to measure in nanometers or do you want to measure in kilometers? And then if you happen to be working in allotments, it asks you if you want to measure in rods, because that's the imperial measure that still applies to allotments. But most of all, we just leave it with the default. And for our presentation today, we're going to say, I want to know what the length is of this road running from the big A372 down to the little old parish boundary here. Interesting, I got the wrong road name there. Weird. So to do that, you're going to move the mouse to the top of the line you want to measure and just click it once, and then you pull it along. And as you pull it along, you'll see that it leaves a color behind you, in this case, red. And when you want to change direction, click once again, change to the new direction, get to the next inflection, change again, and then you just basically just follow the road, clicking once each time you want to change direction until you get to the end. When you get to the end, double click. And then it immediately tells you how long this particular measurement is. This is pretty easy stuff. It's not particularly accurate. If you need it to be more accurate, zoom out. Or sorry, zoom in, I beg your pardon, so that you get a much bigger scale. Obviously, the bigger the scale, the more accurately your line can follow the actual curves of the road. So if measurement in huge accuracy is important to you, make sure you zoom way in before you start. You have these 3 dots here. They can let you save the measurement for future reference, or you can clear it away. which I think I mentioned in the next slide. Here we get the choice, instead of measuring a length, we're going to try area instead. Again, you get the choice of measuring what metric do you want to use. And I'm going to show you how to measure this play area. So we put our cursor, our mouse, top left corner, click once, and then drag down until we get to the bottom corner. And you'll see we get the red line. And we get to the bottom corner here, we click once, move it around, click again, and then double click. And it finishes off for you. And then it'll tell you how big your area is in square meters. So again, you get the chance to save it or to annotate it or completely remove this particular measurement. So that's the measurement thing. We're going to click on Tools, the next one, which is isochrone. So isochrone is the chance of showing how far you can go in a period of time. And these 5, 15 and 30-minute periods are adjustable. This is what it defaults to, but you can have whatever you like. And you can choose car, cycle, or pedestrian. So I'm going to stick the cursor in the center of the village and click there. And it immediately pops up and says, if you are going to travel, in this case, you've selected a car, so you can go this far in 5 minutes on the green scale. You can go this far on the brownish scale, and you can go this far on the pink scale. And the difference with isochrone over regular distance of traveled maps is that it takes account of the features that you're looking at. So if you have roads, obviously you can go further if you selected car. If you select a pedestrian, then it takes account of whether there are footpaths or are you crossing open fields, all that sort of thing. So the distances are all geographically based. Very useful for people who say, I'm going to walk from so-and-so for so-and-so with my grandmother, how far can I get in 15 minutes? And you can tell them. And you can even then just print this out and send it to them. So that was isochrone. By the way, there is a very good explanation of isochrones in the knowledge base. So I gave you the link on the previous page. Ditto, I've given you here a link on annotate because that's also well done here. But annotations is what we're going to choose next. And it'll pop up in the left-hand column and say, if you've done lots of annotations before, they'll all show here. So you can choose whichever one you want to bring up. Or in our case, we don't have anything here. So we're going to click on a new one. And I click on new object. And I say, I have a choice of clicking a dot. That's a dot, not a circle. Don't get confused. Or a line, or a polygon, or a label. And what we're going to do is we do want a circle. So we're saying it's a polygon because you get the choice in there. So click on polygon. And here's the chance to use a circle, which I'm going to click on. I'm also going to click on use a label because I want a label in here. And then I can change the scale of how big the circle is going to be when I get to the next picture. What you're doing with these little choices here is you can adjust the color of the fill and how transparent it is. And ditto for the line on the outside. You can change which color you want and how thick it is. So when you're happy, go forward. And it pops up with a great big red circle. You can adjust the size here to anything that you want. We can put a label in, what label we want to appear, and you'll see that it does appear here. And when you've got everything the way you want it, you can just click on Finish. And you'll find that when you click on Finish, it comes up with a degree of transparency that you asked for. So here we had about 60% transparency. You can see through and see the underlying map. But what I really want to do, the reason I've chosen this is I want to export the details, the addresses of all the houses within 500 meters of the village center. So we're now going to click on this pink circle and so that we can edit it, because editing is how you get the data out. So just clicking on the circle will bring up the data record on the left side, which looks like this. And most of this you can ignore because it's just metrics that are of no interest to you. What we're interested in is getting data out. And to get data out, you click on the 3 dots, which brings up a little mini menu and you select data extract. And then just a bit like table view, it then says, so where do you want to extract from, i.e. which layer? So we click on there and we say address plus points because we're after the addresses. And we don't want to filter anything, so we'll just leave it and just click on run. And up pops the addresses of every building within 500 meters of the village center. So I find Annotate to be really useful. It is also really good for presentations where you want to highlight a point, where you want to put a big label on it, or you want to surround it in pink or purple or something. That's really good for annotations. The rules say not a good idea to do this on a permanent basis. I mean, the annotation will stay there forever, but it tends to be a pain in the neck. I would suggest you use Annotate as a temporary thing. Just use it when your next presentation is going to need to highlight a specific part of the parish or whatever, and then turn it off and get rid of it. But useful for highlighting things and drawing people's attention to a specific item. One more item in tools. This is why the link is here for Annotate. And we've got the asset register export. Now, this is a brand new item. And it's very helpful, but it's got a ways to go, and we'll explain why in a second. So I'm just going to click on that one. And what it does is it selects all the items in your asset register facility. By default, every single layer is selected. It says up here, do you want this in a PDF or other format? But there are no other formats available yet. We're asking for them to give us this as a CSV file so we can use it with a spreadsheet, but it's on the list, hasn't come yet. So if you don't want to select all the layers, say if you just want a couple of specific ones, there is in this choice here a deselect all button, which is very useful. So it'll turn off all the 15 layers and you can just go through and select a couple of layers you want to run on, or just the one, whichever it is. Then you click on generate report. When you do that, we're back to one of those situations where it looks as if nothing's happening, but you'll notice that the open doesn't come away from being gray. It doesn't let you use it until the report is complete. Now, depending on how big your asset register is, it may take several seconds to generate the report, which can seem like forever if you're impatiently wondering if the whole thing is frozen. It hasn't frozen, it's just doing its thing slowly. When you get the chance to click on open, you do so, and you see this nice report with, in our case, 12 pages of data from the asset register. Useful sort of thing to send to your insurance company when it's time to renew your insurance and say, just to make sure we all agree, this is what you're going to be insuring, and these are the values for them. So hugely useful, but basically I can't wait until it stops being a PDF and starts being a CSV. But it's the latest report in the system. So we've done all these menus so far. The next one going across horizontally is create, but because we're going to be using create during our interactive session, I'm just going to jump over it now and go straight to search. So this big search button at the top here basically has a choice of, do you want to search on addresses or do you want to search on postcode? So for the first example, I'm selecting postcode, and I've typed in any old random postcode and it pops up as a dot in the center of that postcode area. So I live in Somerset, but this is taking me straight to Norfolk. I think this looks like a Norfolk number. And it's very convenient. So if you want to see, where your grandmother lives or something, you can just type in her postcard and it jumps straight to it. Very convenient. Or you can click again and go in for the address space. And then you just type in the address. And this again is sort of self-limiting. So when you first type in the first house, you might get 500 entries here. But then as you start typing more, it narrows it down, and you suddenly see the list shrinking until it's down to the one that you want. And you just click on it. And again, it jumps to the middle of the address area that you've chosen. Again, hugely useful for roaring around the country in very fast time if you have an address in your head or a postcode in your head. Useful stuff, the search button. Then the remaining menu on the top line is the services cogwheel. So you click on the cogwheel and you get a drop-down list of 4. The first one is administration. And basically, it appears as if nothing's happening. This central column here is empty when you first go to it. By default, the system is always going to show you your layers. That's the default central column that shows up. But what the system is doing is downloading your layers from the cloud. Now, when you're first starting, you may not have any, or you may have only 1 or 2. In my case, there's a whole bunch. So you're watching these spinning arrows going around for a few seconds until suddenly the page fills up. Excuse me. There's a whole session on layers, and we're going to be talking about them later on in this session, so I'm not going to discuss them now. The other choice that you can leap up to in the left-hand side here is My Organization, and this is where it keeps details of the PSGA number that you've got. So useful place to go and find that, and also tells you that because you've got a PSGA number, you've now activated the APGB account. So we're now going to click on Users. And this is where you can create new users, or you can edit existing ones. So the existing ones, you get the chance to edit them by clicking on one. So I'm clicking on Tony, and you'll notice that then Tony is highlighted and his details pop up in the right-hand column. And you can amend these by clicking on the pencil to show that you want to edit them, or in many cases, you'll want to add a new user, in which case you just click on the plus sign. So we're going to click on the plus sign, and your new username comes up, and notice that all of these red boxes are required. The system will not let you save a user until you've filled in each of these boxes. They're all very self-explanatory, except perhaps for type. And there is a very good link to the knowledge base, which I've stuck in here for type, because it explains each type you can have and why you want them. By type, I mean, you know, are you doing read only? Are you doing editor? Are you doing data manager? Whatever it happens to be, the explanations are in the knowledge base. Quick passing note on email type. I create a username for each of the various types of user, just so I can test them out when I'm doing sessions like this. So I've got one that says read only. I've got one that says editor. I've got one that says administrator, and so forth. But they each require an email address, and the email address has to be unique as far as Parish Online is concerned. Well, I don't have multiple unique email addresses. So there is a tip here for you if you use Gmail. So you can type in here your usual Gmail address, but before the @ sign, put in a plus and then type whatever in you want. And I put in GC-Stones-52, and then I put in plus, and then I put reader or editor or whatever it happens to be. And then I do the @gmail.com. And Gmail very nicely ignores everything from the plus sign onwards to the @ sign. But Parish Online very conveniently considers it to be a completely unique address, and therefore you satisfied your requirements. Any email sent to the address will go to the base one. So, you know, in my case, gcstones52@gmail.com, you couldn't care less what's on the plus side. So that works. That's good. And you have a type explanation link here. And then one more. Next choice down after users, and we're going to get to my layers later, is public maps. That's a completely separate session. But I just mentioned in passing here that public maps is arguably the most useful part of Parish Online. Fabulous, fabulous tool. So we'll cover that in a later session. And the last choice is billing. If you're not an administrator, you won't be able to see it, but just to let you know what's there, nothing very secret, right? Basically, it's just how much it's going to cost you to renew your license for Parish Online next year. So when you finish with all that, click on the globe to return to maps. which we do. And we're now going to the second item and the cogwheel choice, which is help and support. Now, this is really good because Parish Online have just rewritten the whole support system. They've chosen a different program to go with. Don't be confused by the fact that it says it's the XMAP support center. XMAP is just the big brother to Parish Online. So if you like, Parish Online is a subset of XMAP, and most of the articles in here are pertinent to both. So you have a knowledge base, or you have the community forum, which I'm going to discuss later. The knowledge base, if you just type in what you want here, it takes you straight there. Or if you click on knowledge base tab, which is now we're going to do, it gives you an index and titles, but you also still get a search box, which is very useful. Let's type in whatever it is you're looking for, whether it's creating map layers or whether it's deleting something. You just type in what you want and it'll find it. So that's the knowledge base. The other items in the drop-down menu are very minor, and one of them doesn't work anyway, so don't worry about it. I think one was log out and the other one was change the metrics. And since everything in here is now in metrics, except the rods for allotments, it's irrelevant. So we're now going to go on to play with the system. This is where you do all the work and I just sit back and drink coffee. So what we're going to do is create 3 layers, one of each type, one for a point, one for a line, one for a polygon. And then we're going to add a feature to each layer, so you can see basically how you add a record to each layer. And then we'll edit them. We'll edit the layer and we'll edit a feature and we'll add an attachment. Now, this next slide tells you what you need to do to be able to be interactive. So you need Parish Online up and running with at least an editor access in it. You need to be able to switch from my Zoom screen, which is telling you what to do, to your Parish Online screen, which is where you're actually going to do it. And the best way of getting between the two is either Alt-Tab if you're just on 2 separate windows, or Control-1 and Control-2 if you're just jumping from one browser tab to another, whatever it happens to be. And I'm assuming that you're using a mouse with a PC. Otherwise, it's very difficult to do. People who are doing tablets, it's not so easy to do tablets for training sessions. Let me know if you're having problems with this. So what we're going to be doing is creating new layers, and you can only create new layers in your Parish layer collection. You create layers first, and then you add features to them. You can't add features to layers that don't exist. And each layer can only have one type of geometry from the point of view of a choice of points, which are things like bus shelters, trees, lines, which are fairly obvious, and polygons, which basically are everything else. You determine what data you're going to keep in a layer by creating columns. And again, we're going to do that in a second. And then having created the layers, we actually add the data and put a feature on the map. So we're going to do 3 columns in each layer. We do a name column, a date column, and a status column. We're going to do 3 layers. The first one, a point. And then I'm going to ask you to go ahead and do a line and a polygon just to show that you've grasped the essentials. So this is where the fun starts. So you now to be in your Parish Online, and you go to the Create menu and you select New Layer. And if you don't have a Create menu, it means you've got the wrong access rights to your account, but I don't think you're going to have those problems, either of you. So when you create on New Layer, it comes up with a screen saying, so what do you want to call this layer? Now, the only point I'd make here is the name you give it. And I'm suggesting you give it your name and the word test hyphen, and then this is a point because it's a point layer. But the name you give is going to be in the left-hand column of the brown layers. So that's why I'm just pointing out you've got to choose a name that's short enough to fit into the column length. That's the only feature there. When you're ready, click on Next. It comes up and says, what sort of geometry do you want? You have a choice of 3, select point. And then it says, use up to 500 characters to give a layer description. not very important today, but basically you just write down there why on earth you're creating this layer, because once you've got several hundred of them and you can't remember what each one is for, it really helps to have a description of why you wrote this in the first place. When you're happy, click on Next. And this is where we add the 3 columns of data that we're going to add. Now you'll notice there are no columns here at all at the moment. So we're going to add one by clicking on the plus sign. So click on the plus and it'll pop up with the first row called name. And name is fine. We want the first one to be called name. The text is fine. And we're not going to bother with anything else. So you're ready for the next one. Click on plus. And it comes up with a second row, which is also called name. And then it comes up with a little red note that says names must be unique in column rows. So you're going to have to change the second one from name to, in this case, date. We decided to call it date. And all you do is put your cursor on top of the word name, erase it, and type in date instead. Move to the type column and change it from text to date. And again, you're finished, ready for the next one. Click on the plus sign. And then do the same again with the last column. Change the word name to status. It stays as a text field, but this time you're going to add some allowed values. So click on the Add Plus button next on the status column. So if I'm going to click on Add Plus, and it comes up and says, so what do you want to do? Add a value. So we suggested you have 3 values. One of them is not yet started. So type in not yet started where it says equals add a value. Then click on the add sign top right. It asks you for a second one. You can put in under construction. Do it again, click on the add sign and put in a third one called finished. So you should now be looking at 3 rows of allowed values, one called not yet started, one called under construction, and one called finished. When you've got something like that, then just click on confirm. And it comes up with a summary of what you've got. So I make the point here because it's very helpful to people who are doing things for the first time. It doesn't matter if you get things wrong in Parish Online. It's very simple to come and create changes later with editing. And we are in fact going to do that. So if you haven't got things precise at this point in time, it doesn't matter. We'll fix it as we go along. So assuming you're anywhere near ready, click on the green finish button. And there's a whole blurb on my screen, which I'm going to leap over because you can read it in slow time and it's not particularly pertinent at the moment anyway. It's for when you're doing things for real. So you should have been taken back to your main map and your new layer will show up under the Parish Layers collection. If you didn't have any there before, then you've got one now. And if you did have a bunch before, you'll see it's the bottom one. And depending on how many you have, you may need to scroll down through the Parish Layers collection to find your new one. So what we're going to do is then make one of those columns we've just created a required column. Remember how when we did the users, a lot of the boxes were outlined in red? Well, it helps to have at least one box on every layer, a required value, because it means that someone's got to put something in one of the boxes, and that helps to find it later. If people create features and they don't put any name in and they just put a cross somewhere on the map, it makes it very difficult to find later because there's no data there. So we're going to have one required field. And to do that, you go up to the top right-hand corner, click on the cogwheel and select administration. And then you're waiting for the central layers column to finish up with your layers. And hopefully one of them will be your test layer. It should be the bottom one. And you just highlight it by clicking on it once. And then the details will pop up in the right-hand column under Layer Details. And there are 2 tabs, one called General, one called Columns. Please click on the Columns tab, and it'll pop up and show you that it's already completed the search and query columns for you. We want to put a tick in the required box for the name column. So just click inside the required box and you get if you can come back to my screen, you just get a little required all flipped up. Once that's happened, you can just click on the yellow save icon and the disk at the top. It asks you if you're sure you really want to save, and you say yes. And then it will save it for you, and it pops up with a little green box to say it's been saved. Now, that isn't there for very long, just a few seconds. And it's a good way of letting you know it has successfully saved it. The only case you're really fussed about is if it doesn't save it, it'll come up with a red box saying so. And that's usually because there's been a connectivity issue. In fact, I don't know of any other reason that it's happened. So in that case, you just click again. Anyway, we're now done. Go back to maps with the global box at the top, right? I've got on my screen just a summary of where we are, but basically we've created a new layer with 3 columns in it, one of which is I've got 3 allowed values in it, and one of which is required data. So now the next stage is to do the same thing for a geometry layer, sorry, a line layer and a polygon layer. And this is where I sit back and drink my coffee. I have on my screen so that you can check with it each of the steps you need to do to create these layers. But if you could please go ahead and create the same 3 columns in each of the line layer and the polygon layer that you create, then that would be good. And I'm going to have a sip of coffee, and then I'll stop the screen share and come back and see you to see when you're ready to move on to the next stage. I'm just going to stop sharing so I can come back and see how you're doing. Oh, good afternoon, Noala. Oh, you're on mute, so I can't hear you. Nice to see you join it. So everyone's looking like they're doing very little. Does that mean you've finished? Claire, you're on mute as well.
What was the last? Hang on. I've done name, date. What was the last one called?
Status.
Status.
And you just have 3 allowed values there, and you can call them whatever you like. But I've one is not yet started, one is under construction, and one is finished.
Okay. I've just created the layer.
Well, are you with us? You okay?
Yeah, just so I need to add a title, or am I just using name and text again?
You're just using name. Well, the 3 row. Oh, the title. No, you just use name test and then say if it's
Okay, right.
a line or a geometry. Sorry, a line or a polygon, whichever one you're doing, just to sort of distinguish between the 2. It's not crucial. You can call them whatever you like. It's just a matter of going back and deleting them later.
Yeah.
So having the word test in there helps.
So I've got two lines, a test line and a line. Yeah.
That's fine. Yep.
Is that all I need?
Yep. If you're feeling hardworking, you can create a third layer with geometry. Sorry, with polygon. So you want a line layer, a point layer, and a polygon layer. But it's not crucial, but it helps to have one of each because that's what we do when we're adding the features.
polygon then on the third one.
Please, if you would, yes, Laura, please.
So I've pressed finish and that's disappeared now.
Yes, that's fine. You should be back at your main maps menu.
Yeah.
Good. And how are we doing with Claire and with Anthony?
Nearly.
Nearly.
Hold on.
Okay, there's no rush. Just let me know if you get stuck.
So am I meant to be doing something else?
No, we're just waiting for
No,
No,
Anthony and Claire to
you're
say
too
they're ready.
quick.
All
I've
right.
forgotten to put my
well,
columns
you're-
in one of my.
It doesn't matter if you haven't got it perfect, Claire. It's just a matter
Okay.
of showing you the principle today.
Right, yeah, fine. Okay, well, I think I'm done then.
Okay. How are you doing, Anthony?
I'm fine. I don't have my editor privileges yet, so I'll come back to this and.
Oh, okay, okay. So we can move on then. So let me share the
yeah.
screen and we'll take you on to where we were. So the next thing is going to be the need to, I'm sorry, I need to go into slideshow here. There we go. And what we're going to do now is add a feature to the layer. So for Claire and Nuala, the first thing we're going to do is select where you're going to put these features. You've got 3 layers, so we're going to put in 3 features. So it helps to find an open space anywhere in your parish where you can put these test features. I'm going to show you, in my case, I've chosen our recreation ground, which is a nice big open space. It won't matter to anybody if suddenly a strange new cricket pavilion and a footpath arise there. So you zoom and scroll till you've got the right place to put somewhere. And now you're going to add the features. So the way to do that is to select your layer from the layers inside your parish layer. So let's start with the point. Choose your point layer, and anywhere in this layer, just right click, and it will pop up with this little drop down menu, and you're going to click on Add Feature. And you'll notice that the left-hand column changes to the 3 columns that we chose: name, date, and status. And you can add details in each one. And the name is surrounded in red, showing it's required. So put in anything you like in there. I just sort of put in nonsense like Graham's Test Pavilion or the point, whatever it was, and select today's date. And then you'll see that the status has got 3 drop-down values. That's what you were creating when you did the 3 allowed values, and you can just select anyone you like. Not yet started is a good one. You'll notice that even though you've completed the red required column, the save button is still grayed out. You can't actually do anything yet because you need to put this feature on the map. So as you move your cursor, your mouse over the map, you'll see it changes to a crosshairs, and you just want to put it on somewhere in the map and then left click once. And that's what I've done. And you'll notice that the save button now becomes fully black, and you click on save. And what was in blue has now changed to a solid red, showing that it's been saved. In the left-hand column, you'll notice it's gone completely blank again. So it's just ready for the next feature to be added. So we've just added a point. So what we're going to do now is a layer. So we can change the layer in the top box. So up here, I said the layer was Graham's test point. Let's click on the down arrow and it gives you all the other choices. And I'm going to choose Graham's test line.
Okay, you've lost me now.
Oh, okay. So are you in your, let's go back a sec. Whereabouts are you?
I'm in feature editor.
Right.
So
And-
I've selected
And
layer.
have you created your point, or are you still in that that
Well,
bit?
I've got the point. I've got the little square or the little cross.
Yes, your mouse is the square, is the cursor.
Yeah.
So move it to where you want to put this point, anywhere you like in your selected area, and then just left click. And it puts
All right,
it.
okay, yeah.
All right. So then you probably need to click on the save button.
Right, okay, got that.
And then you should get a blank column on the left-hand side for the feature editor. And at the top, you're going to select a new layer. So instead of being in your your point layer, you're now going to choose your line layer, because having put in a point, we're now going to put in a path, a footpath, which is a line. Okay?
Yeah.
So fill in the details, fill in the name, just call it a test line or something. Give it a date if you want to, give it a status if you want to, it doesn't matter if you don't. And then I'm using the point that we just created as the starting position for our footpath. So I move my mouse to the red point, I left click, and then I can draw a line just by pulling the mouse across the page. So you should see a blue line following your mouse. Play and change in direction by just click the mouse once and then change direction, and the line will follow you in the new direction, and you can take it wherever you like. And if you happen to be watching my screen, on the Zoom screen, you'll see I've just created this little footpath running down the side of the sports court. When you get to where you're happy for the end to be, double click, and then you can save. And when you save, you'll notice that the color of the line changes from blue to red, so that you know it has been saved. And the feature editor has again changed to a blank record to let you choose the next one. And we're now going to go up to the select a layer, choose your new polygon layer, and do the same thing again, create that. So the way that you do that is you fill in the details of the name, date, status. Then you put your crosshairs, your mouse, at any point where you're going to start a building, and click once, and then draw the building by just drawing the mouse, pulling the mouse down. And each time you want to change direction, say you've reached a corner of the building, click once and then draw the next line, and so forth, until you've completed a square or an oblong or a triangle or a rectangle, whatever it is that you're drawing. And when you've finished, you double click. And again, then you can save, and your building will go from being a blue outline to being a red block. And that means that it's safely saved. Now, the left column of the feature editor will again be waiting for you to complete a blank record, but because we've finished, we've done our 3 features, you can click on the X at the top of the feature editor column. So click on the X and it disappears. And you should get back your column layers, and you should see that your 3 layers of point, line, and polygon have all got tick marks on, and you should see all 3 of them on the map. So basically you're showing 3 layers at once. So this is just demonstrating to you how easy it is to show all 3 layers at once. And if you want to just see what happens, click anywhere in one of those layers in the left-hand column and it'll disappear. Click on it again, it'll come back again. So that's how we turn layers on or off. It's how you show different layers at different times, or all layers at the same time. Excuse me. So the next step then is to show you how you edit something if it isn't the way you wanted it. And we're going to also show you how to remove the features on the layers you just created. So let's suppose that we want to edit the building that you've drawn. It doesn't have nice right angles, or it's not in quite the right place, whatever it happens to be. So click anywhere in the red building that you've just created, and you'll notice that the column on the left-hand side now changes to the data record for that building. And it'll have your recognized name, date, and status fields at the top, then a bunch of data underneath, which is irrelevant really. And you want to edit this. So if you click on the pencil at the top left of the column, you can now change anything in those name, date, or status fields if you want to. Or you can move your mouse over to the building, which is now surrounded by a blue line to show that this is the one that you're editing. And as you move your mouse over any point of the blue line, a blue dot will appear, which you can then pull by just clicking on it, and you can pull it to whatever shape you want. So just experiment with that. You can sort of turn your building from a rectangle into a pentagon, or you can change it to a triangle. It's just the idea is to get you used to moving things around and editing them. And you can also decide that you want to get rid of the whole thing, in which case you click on the dustbin on the top of the left column. So what I'm going to do for you in a second is get rid of the building, but I just want to draw your attention to the fact that attachments now show up as an option in the left column. Now, when you're in Feature Editor, you couldn't do anything with attachments. The opportunity hadn't arisen. But now that you're actually in the item itself, you can add an attachment here. So I suggest you just click on the plus button. It'll ask you for anything that you want to attach. Choose a spreadsheet or a Word document or a photograph, whatever you like. Just click on it, add the attachment there. It'll take a few seconds, and then the attachment will show up. And however long it takes will depend upon what you chose. So a photograph with lots of pixels will take longer to add than a spreadsheet, which might be very short. So this is how you edit records, it's how you delete records, and it's how you add attachments to records, and it's how you move things that are on the map. So you can move the building, you can move the footpath, or you can move the dot. The dot, unsurprisingly, is the easiest one to move, but they all work. And you can have an attachment, any number of attachments on any of them. So it doesn't matter what sort of layer it is, you can add attachments to any record in the layer, which is a great way of saving your data associated. So with the building, you can put, the date it was built, the inspection records, the electricity records, the invoices from the builder, the contractor, the flowers, everything that's associated with the building, you can just add there as an attachment. Really good stuff. So I'm going to delete it just to show you how you do that. So having got the building highlighted, I click on the dustbin and it disappears once you've checked whether you want to delete it or not, and it's gone. So that was deleting features from a layer. The next step is how to delete the entire layer itself. So you can go back up to the top right-hand corner, the little cogwheel, click on the cogwheel and then select the administration layer. It takes you back to your layers popping up in the middle of the screen. The one you want to get rid of, just click on it once to highlight it, and then move up to the dustbin at the top of the central column and click on the column and your layer will disappear. It will ask you to confirm that you want to delete it, because this is a step that, if you made a mistake, you have to go back and start all over. So we've really reached the end of the session now. I'm just summarizing that what we've done is to go through the details of every menu in the top row. We've had you create 3 layers, one of each geometrical type, point, line, and polygon. You've added a feature to each layer. You've edited and deleted the feature, and you've edited and deleted a layer, and we've added attachments. So I'm just reminding you that there's lots of help available in the help and support part of the services cogwheel. That takes you straight to the knowledge base. You can go straight to the knowledge base just by typing in the URL for it and saving it as a bookmark. So I suggest you go to the knowledge base through Parish Online And once you're there, just save the bookmark, because you can go back to it without being in Parish Online, which can be a great time saver. So we finished the formal part of the presentation. A couple of questions here. If any of you, having looked through what sessions are available, would like to see new ones, I'd love to hear about them, because we can always create new ones. And I had been asking people whether they like the presentations to be fast like today's, where we have lots and lots of slides and we go skating over them quickly so that you can go over them later when I send it to you. Or would you prefer it to be slow and we take a lot longer to cover the same ground? I mean, if I get answers, everything answered so far has been people like it fast, but I just want to make sure I don't leave lots of people behind just because I haven't asked them. So I'm now going to unshare the screen and come back to you guys and ask if you've got any questions.
On your allotments, do you actually have, do you actually map out each individual allotment plot? Or do you just show where the allotment site is?
Well, we do, because there is a very, very quick and simple way of doing it, Claire. So if you've got, again, let me just show you an example. So if I go into my screen, if I turn on Parish Online, which I may or may not do, let's come out of here. Do it here. Come. Let's go. There we go. Let's click on new, go into Parish Online, go into Parish Online. And what I'm just going to show you is that the system gives you your allotment, if the system knows about it, already outlined in down here in allotments. You have allotment boundaries, and you'll see that ours have popped up here.
Yeah.
And also the one down here in Pibsbury. And this is the one that I want to show you, because we zoom into here. There are lots and lots of separate plots in Pibsbury. And if you turn on the plots layer, you can see some of them. But, but what's really handy, and this is where it gets interesting, is I suggest you turn on the overhead photographs. All right, so if I turn on the photography, we have to wait a little bit for the system to catch up, because it's downloading all the photographs from the cloud. And I don't have a nice fat connection to the internet. But whilst I'm talking, what's going to happen is that the photography is automatically aligned with the map. So there we go.
Right. Yeah.
And if we now that we know where we are, we can turn off the map itself. There we go. And you can see all the lots. All right. But now, because you're in the plot layer of, I'm just going to go down here to show you, you've got the plots turned on. You can now just draw around any of these plots. So if I add a feature, so I want to add a feature. Okay, so now I can just go around the plot like this.
Yeah.
And it's very quick.
That'd be brilliant.
All right. And then you just give it a name and away you go.
Yeah.
So, and of course, to get greater clarity, you can zoom in and just pause for it to allow it to catch up. It looks hugely out of focus, but that's only because it's still downloading new stuff. It will in due course come up to you with full crispness. And it always happens. It doesn't matter what scale you choose. The system does take a while to catch up, but I promise you it will do. And then you can get the edge of every plot boundary. I have talked to people about this quite a lot, because this can be quite finicky, particularly if you try doing it with cemeteries. And most of us have concluded that rather than outlining each grave, just put a dot in the center of each one. It's much easier to put in 100 dots than it is to put in 100 plots. And that does the job, because you don't actually need to know, as far as I'm aware, where the edge of each plot is. You just need to know which grave has got somebody in it.
Yeah, right.
So
and
it's much quicker with cemeteries to use dots, and you can actually do the same with allotments, unless you happen to have a council that needs to know which each and every allotment boundary is. But you can do the same thing here. You can just put a plot in the middle of each, a point in the middle of each allotment. Unfortunately, you'll need to create a new parish layer to do this because the plots layer is set up as polygon. And if you want to put a point on there as a central point, you need to create a new layer to do it. But it's easily
that's
done.
great. Our allotments are all odd sizes because sometimes we've halved them. So this would be really good.
Yep. Some of them are wonderfully old, and therefore they take their time in sort of in changing shape, because over the years, you know, people have walked around and they've doubled up or they've shrunk down.
Right, ours is like a jigsaw. It's not straightforward. It's but this would really help. All right, that's great.
Good. That was your question, Claire. Anyone else?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, everyone.
Right. I think that the speed was good, maybe a little bit slower on the actual practical bit.
Yes.
For me, anyway.
Well, you were leaping ahead of everybody anyway, but yes, I agree with you.
So I would like it a bit slower.
What I really should do at the start of each session is ask how much experience people have got, because if they're all newcomers, then I need to allow a lot more time. You're quite right. It does take time to sink in, and there's a lot to remember. And one tends to forget that the learning curve in Parish Online is quite steep, but once you've grabbed it, everything becomes very simple. It's interesting, when I do the training sessions, I get lots of people coming to the early sessions. No one comes to the later sessions because they've all learnt it. They've all done it for themselves. But anyway, I'm open to any questions. If there are any more, it doesn't have to be about today's session particularly, or we can say goodbye. It's time to go for tea.
Yeah, no, it's
Time to go
definitely
for tea. Well, look, it's been very great to have you. Thank you very much. I will send you all out a copy of the presentation and the video.
right.
And I'll send you a list of useful hints and things in case you haven't been to one of these sessions before, which just gives you where to go for the community forum, that sort of thing. Oh, one last little thing on the community forum, if I can bother you to share the screen one more second. Let's go up here to the community forum help. And community forum in here. So this is a place where they are trying to get people to use the system a little bit like Facebook or something, so that you have a question, you ask it, and someone who's online will come in and help you answer it. In particular, it's useful for feedback. So in their asset register export thing, when they introduced it, they said they're bringing it in PDF format, but we'd like people to let us know if they want anything else. So I wrote in and said, yes, I want CSV. And I've got 3 more people to join in, because the more that join in and say so, the better. So this is my request to you guys. Please feel free to drop into the community forum, find the asset register bit, which you just click on the title, and it gives you the chance to reply and say, you can wave your hand, say, yes, please, I want the CSV volume as well. And that would help me get it that much more quickly. But lots of topics in here. It's brand new, so it's not very deep or wide yet, but we're getting started basically. So if you have any questions, please feel free to come. And then when I send you the email, I'll also suggest that you should come to the banter session if you're free on Friday afternoons, just a get together of the usual suspects who are all either parish clerks or councillors who are very experienced in Parish Online, and they're just sitting there waiting for someone to ask them a question. So please feel free to drop in, say, how do I do this? Thank you very much, goodbye. And it's just a very much ad hoc thing, very helpful, and it's very friendly. So do please, if you have a question, feel free to drop in and ask it. I'll send you the link in the email that I send out afterwards. So thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you, and I hope to see you again. Take care.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
thank you. Thanks.